Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, and you are in for a radical treat today because I have in my studio none other than Tracy Ottinger. And many of you have already talked to Tracy on the phone. You've had an incredible power session with her, or you've heard her name used in vain several times by Matt, Micah, or I. And Tracy is our lead growth officer. And so she is going to talk today in depth about the most questions we receive after people listen to this incredible podcast, which is, Jamie, you have to tell me more about memberships. You have to tell me about what is the BackStage Pass, what is Invictus, and how do I talk to Tracy and transform my financial planning practice. So Tracy, say hello to the members.
Hello, TPR Nation. Jamie, as you intro me, I have this cheers going on in the background.
Stadium.
Yeah. Hey guys, so glad to talk to you today. Wanted to tell you a lot about the memberships we have at TPR. I know that you've heard the guys talk a lot about the BackStage Pass and Invictus. However, if you're like me, you don't hear them say a lot of details about the membership. So that's what I'm here for.
Tracy, that's so funny. So I want to kick this off by, we got an awesome question asked at the Perfect RIA recently. And it was somebody that was leaving their profession and they were going to enter the financial advisor space. And so they said, I'm getting started and everyone has told me, in fact, I don't know if you know this, but the CFP coaches out there for the CFP examination, when you're going through your prep study, they tell you that the podcasts that you should listen to are the Perfect RIA as well as Retirement Tax Services. That if you're trying to start your practice, you need to go listen to those podcasts to actually learn what you're going to do after you pass your examinations.
That is amazing. I had no idea.
I had no idea. I was talking to a CFP candidate and she goes, yeah, I already listened to your podcast. Look, it's already on the top 10 list. You use several different ones. I was like, that's incredible, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this person emailed in, they're having a change of life. They're going to change their professions. And he said, listen, I've already been listening. Everyone told me to listen to the Perfect RIA podcast if I want to learn how to become this rock star financial advisor. So I'm doing that. But I'm really at the crux and I don't know, should I pay for my CFP board examination or should I become a BackStage Pass member? Like, which one comes first? Because let's face it, when you're doing a career change and you're starting out, you don't have a ton of money. Like, every single decision matters, and where you put those dollars towards your professional development, you have to be hyper critical about.
So how do you feel about it takes money to make money?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we grew up, the first time we had a lemonade stand or the, car wash, my dad would always be like, takes money to make money. And we weren't allowed to borrow assets from the house unless we paid my dad for them. Oh. And so if we wanted to do car washing, right, he'd line up his entire fleet and be like, okay, guys, you're going to wash these cars. This is also how Jamie Shalansky discovered she is not a person made for manual labor. So he would have his fleet, like motorhome, sports cars, all this minivan, all the fleet up there. And he would rent me the soap, he would rent me the sponge, and he would rent me the bucket, and then he would charge me a utility fee for the water. And he was like, so I'm going to pay you to clean all these cars, and then we're going to deduct, how much it actually costs for you to do this. And that was a really good business lesson for me because it does take money to earn money. I wanted to earn money, but I had no skill set, I had no tools, I had no resources, I had to borrow them.
And just think about that generational learning too, because I know you did the same thing with your son.
Yes.
He's like, hey, I want this job. I'm going to go do these things. Please give me all these supplies so I can do them. And you're like, oh, no. That's not how it works.
I was like, you're going to rent these from me and I'm going to charge you because it takes, but that was such a good entrepreneur lesson for me. And that's what I always tell my dad, he made Micah and I incredibly successful as adults because he taught us how to think like entrepreneurs, not because he taught us to think like financial advisors. Right. And so it does take money to make money. And so this person coming in there saying, listen, do I go get my credentialing or do I do a program that is going to absolutely teach me how to be a rock star advisor? Where do I spend those dollars?
So my vote is getting into a program that teaches you how to be a rock star advisor.
That's so interesting because I think I would have told him to go get a CFP. And you know what's fascinating about that?
What?
Is of course, this is all the information we had on this guy, right? Like, which one should I do? I'm on a seesaw. And so, one, I don't know his age. Because you have a lot of 20-year-olds. In fact, I just talked to my son Lane about this. And Lane's younger cousin is age 14, Gabriel, and that's Micah's son. And so Lane's like, hey, I'm 21, I'm gonna get my CFP, and then I'm gonna start bringing on clients when I'm 25. And I said, well, let's pump those brakes because you can do that, right? We built Micah's practice, we did all of that when he was those ages. But it was very difficult. And he's like, why? Age shouldn't matter. I'm a millennial, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, Lane, think about this. Let's just say you need a ride. Are you going to toss the keys to Gabriel, who's age 14, and let him drive you home in your brand new car that you just worked so hard to get? And he's like, oh my goodness, no way, no how, right? And I said, why? He's of legal age. He can do it. He's going to have this license, right? He could physically do it. And he said, that is crazy to think about. He's like, I'm so stunted by that. And I said, great. Now take a 22-year-old with their CFP, talking to a 60-year-old and explaining all of the facts about why they should hand over their entire life savings to this child, right? Because in your mind, when you're 60 and you're 20, that's a child.
I'd like to see how many 22-year-old CFPs could do that. Like first sit down and be able to tell this 80-year-old what they're going to do with their money.
Right. Yeah. And all their experience. And I said, you have all the education, you have all of the knowledge, you have all of the credentialing. That's really, really great. You need time. You need experience. You need those relationships. And of course, that's always the crux, right? You need experience. You can't go get that experience without having experience. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So I believe your pedigree doesn't matter. I don't care if you went to college. I really don't. I care about your thirst and your curiosity and your willingness and your honesty and all of those values to go do it.
Absolutely.
But not knowing this particular person, like, what is their age? What is their experience in other fields? Do they already have credentials, after their name? Have they already tried to become, an expert in a particular industry? So I think, when you're first starting out, you need a ton of education. But why do you think BackStage Pass would have been exactly where this advisor should have gone?
Because just like we just said, right? You're a 22-year-old or a 20-year-old and you're sitting down for the first time telling somebody with life experience what you're going to do with their money or what you think they should do with their money. And with the BackStage Pass and Invictus, you've got Matt and Micah with how many combined years of experience that literally have videos that show you exactly how to sit down and talk to those people and the documents and resources to explain that intelligently to the person that's sitting across from you, right?
Yeah. So what's really cool, so let's dive in. We're super, super deep to BackStage Pass so we can answer a question that we get, constantly. You're flooded with emails like, what exactly is BackStage Pass, right? Like, I hear what you're saying. I see what it costs. What am I getting,
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that my listeners know is that I always refer to BackStage Pass as like your gym membership. Right? So you're paying to go to a gym, all of the equipment is there, but you got to figure it out yourself, right? Like if you want to use it, you got to know how to use the weights, you got to know how much cardio time, you need to do all of those things.
Absolutely. The best way that I explain that to potential members is you've got an advisory library, if you will, of everything that you could possibly need to know how to be an advisor.
I love that. A financial advisor library.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's created by Matt and Micah and their team, right?
Right.
So you've got the resources, which consist of webinars, instructional webinars that tell you how to do it, show you how to do it. You've got mock videos of Matt sitting down, presenting to a client for the first time, changing a prospect into a client. You've got all of the documents that they use in their advisory. I get really
excited. Because you're like
you get this and you get this and you get this.
It's not just a gym; it's a Ritz-Carlton spa. Get in that infinity pool.
Absolutely.
So let's unpack the BackStage Pass. Yeah. So one of the things when we started doing this, as most listeners, longtime listeners of the Perfect RA know, Matt and Micah started the podcast as a bar joke. After a conference they had both attended together. They went to a bar and there were all these self-proclaimed experts that had never once sat across from a client and delivered financial advice to them, telling them what all of these financial advisors need to do in their practice. Now, if you're a self-proclaimed expert and you have no client experience, cool, awesome. I hire business coaches all of the time, right? But at the same time, if you are an expert, know your lane. Know your lane.
Absolutely.
So don't tell me what it's like to sit across from a client if you have not sat across from a client.
That's one of the things that I love about our program is we're one of the only programs that have client-facing advisors leading the membership, right?
Yeah, these aren't people that started out to be a financial advisor, couldn't make their BD cut, and so became a wholesaler instead, right?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
No, these are actual financial advisors, myself included, that sit down. And one of the things that so as Matt and Micah started doing this podcast, they completely cleared out the room, and then they said, you know what? What if we have something? What if we have something other financial advisors want to know more about? What if we take this collective knowledge that Matthew Jarvis and his father Nathaniel Jarvis and his masterful team with Colleen and Alec have all come together, and they have flushed out a lot of what we refer to as value adds, and we're going to talk about in depth about that in just a second. And then you take all of that Shalansky collective synergy that we have been doing for the last 40 plus years, and we say, hey, other financial advisors, do you want to see this? Like, do you want to see what we deliver to clients? Do you want to see what our value adds are? So let's talk about what a value add is, and when you become a BackStage Pass member, what you will have access to. So a value add is what we in the financial advisor space use to deliver to a client. So one of the big things that you've heard me say on this podcast a lot of times is if you live by the markets, you will die by the markets. And so in a lot of my client meetings, we probably so I have an hour scheduled for most client appointments that are in person, 30 minutes for ones that are on the telephone. Tracy, out of that hour and 30 minutes, how much time do you think I talk about investments?
5 minutes.
It's the last part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, Floyd and I tandem, meet with people, and they'll turn and they'll say, okay, well, how am I doing with investments? And Floyd away like, oh, great, let's go over this real quick. And it is a 5 to 15 minute conversation. This last couple of years, because of the economies, we've been spending a little bit more time unpacking concepts, but this is nothing like the 2008 crisis, and this is nothing like the dot-com burst and bubble, because we don't live by the financial markets.
So then what are you going to do, right? You're going to present a value add that shows them something to get excited about, something that's going to make them feel good.
And this is what I get so frustrated when CFPs come to me and they say, hey, listen, there are 5 areas of financial planning, da 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 da. And I'm like, great, show me what you're doing in meetings. And they only talk about investments. Now, why do we only talk about investments, Tracy?
Why do we, Jamie?
Because that's how you make money.
Indeed.
And I wish that was wrong. Like, I know that's an ugly thing to say, but that is why most financial advisors talk about the investments and only bunker down there, because that is where their bread and butter is.
And here's the thing, the ones that are only talking about investments, do you know how many times they're running and rerunning a financial plan or synopsis for a client?
Oh, right?
like how much wasted time is there?
Wasted paper. Save the polar bears, people. Come on. So, and if you do that, right, and all of us have done it, and you live by the markets, you die by the markets. That's where you're making your bread and butter. We call it commission breath, right? So when we actively are hiring financial advisors to join Shalansky and Associates, so we can show them the cookie cutter version of like how we deliver the most amount of value to clients. And the ones that follow that process, if they have industry experience, they're a little, they kind of rebook it a little, and they're like, hey, when do I talk about transferring assets? When do we talk about the markets?
It's like riding a bike, right? They're so used to that being their meeting. They know no other way to meet.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is such a disservice to me, because that investments are important, but they are a tool in your financial tool belt. And if you make them the primary part of your conversation because you're getting paid that way, then you're doing a complete disservice to all the other sectors. And I know that because I can tell you right now, as a financial advisor, one area that I wish I was more focused on is the insurance. And I check mark the box, right? So like I'll go through like, do you have life? Do you have health? Do you have disability? And I'll check mark the boxes, but I don't get paid on those products, right? And so I have to mentally check myself to say, nope, I do charge a financial planning fee. Therefore I have a responsibility to go back and look at these things. So I'm telling you, full candid, full transparency, this is how our minds work. We focus where the money is at, because that's the conditional capitalist society that we have. So we have to retrain our brains about how we provide value to clients. And I don't care how you charge clients. I don't care if you're fee only. I don't care if you're AUM only. I don't care how you are paid. I care about the value that you are providing to your clients. So we bring these value adds in and we say, great, we're going to talk about the markets. We're going to make sure we hit on those. But throughout the rest of the year, there's a lot of other things going on in your finances. There's a retirement income. There's looking at your insurance. We're reviewing your disability. We're going over your net worth. We are doing estate planning. Like, we are constantly doing things with clients. And so even when we run the long-term care ad, so we do that as a value add. So we do long-term care value add. And that's available to our BackStage Pass members. You get to see how Jarvis started it. I kind of finessed a little bit different for our office because I have a terrible habit of reinventing the wheel. I'm like, oh, you have 2 wheels? I bet I could have 4. Hold on.
Hey, listeners, for those of you out there that don't know, Jamie always knows how to do it better.
Yes, in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's so great what you did. Now I'm going to take it off and do something even 10 times better. Yes. So when I'm not reinventing the wheel, you can see both versions of that. And a lot of clients asked, or financial advisors said, hey, listen, are you only running that value add to your clients that are 65 and older, right? And because that's when you kind of, at 60, you kind of start having the long-term care conversation, particularly if you have a client that has had parents that have gone through some situation. It's almost always the female that brings up this conversation. So my answer is, we ran it for everybody. We ran it for everybody, regardless of age. Why do you think we did that?
So in my mind, as you're saying this, I'm like, long-term care doesn't mean just for
elderly.
There's a lot of people that end up needing long-term care earlier than retirement age.
Yeah, we live in Alaska, and so we use the example of a hockey puck to the head. We've known people that have gone, and has suffered incredible injuries doing some kind of sporting event, and they're a vegetable. They have but they need that long-term care insurance. And so one of the reasons that we do the value add for everyone across the board is also the dishwasher rule. Mm-hmm. So Trace, can you tell our listeners what the dishwasher rule is? Because we get questions on this all the time. Every webinar is like, what's the dishwasher rule?
I'll be so disappointed if the listeners don't know the dishwasher rule is already, because everybody talks about what the dishwasher rule is. So, you do so many things for your clients behind the scenes, kind of like a duck with their feet below water, right?
Oh, that's I love that visual. Yeah, so yes, I think in, what did you say? What is it? You think in words and I think in pictures. Yeah. So I already see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many things you do for your clients, and you want them to know that. They're not going to know it unless you tell them.
100%. So we started this as a joke because Micah's household, he actually does a lot of cooking and a lot more of the dishes than you think upon meeting him. And so in his household, he would do the dishes. But if my sister-in-law, Kelly, didn't see him do the dishes, did he really do the dishes? He didn't do the Yes. And every spouse out there knows, like, if I didn't see you do it, you did not do it, right? So now what Micah does is he'll go around the house, he'll collect the dishes, and he'll say, hey, Kelly, I'm starting the dishwasher. Do you have any dishes you want me to put in there? And now it's a joke because she knows that he is showing her the work he's doing. And he's not doing it for validation. Well, I guess he is doing it for validation, right? Because we do a lot of work. And I know as a financial advisor, I think about my clients all of the time. All of the time. I am running some scenario in my head, but we don't always convey that to the client.
Right. So for the advisors listening, think about that. Do you tell your clients, what you've done behind the scene that is helping them? Yeah.
And I think somebody online called this the unpaid household work, right? And you're right, that unpaid household work has a value. And so you want to be communicating that value to your clients all of the time. And so when we ran this long-term care, I had my 35, 38-year-olds, say, hey, I got this long-term care paperwork for you guys. Thank you so much. My employer was just talking about releasing this in the benefits package. This really helps kind of put things in perspective. And on our long-term care, which you're available to see as a BackStage Pass member, you can also see that we said, this is the cost of insurance. Here's your different options. So this is not me selling you long-term care insurance. This is me telling, these are the options. You can self-fund, you can do an employer plan, you can do all of these different things. And so it's letting our clients know we're looking into this. So as a BackStage Pass member, you get to see Jarvis Financial and Chilean Skin Associates value add on long-term care insurance. And what's beautiful about that is that if you look at it and you're like Jamie Schlansky and go, oh, I could do this 10 times better, then you could see the format and then fine, go ahead. You're a member. Go customize it to your office, or you could do something incredibly crazy and do what works. And use the format that we have, because before we release anything into BackStage Pass, and I don't know if you tell people this or if you're aware of it too, but before any document gets loaded up into BackStage Pass, we do trial runs through surges. And so if we're introducing, a year ago, we did our new net worth report. We ran it through one surge, and then we made our corrections during the summertime during our mini surges, and then we ran it through the fall and cleaned it all up before we ever issued it inside of BackStage Pass.
That's a good point. I did know that products were tested and tested again, but no, I've never told somebody that when I'm talking to them about it. And absolutely.
Do you know why? Because if they suck, if they are bad, or if we have something that a client is like, wow, this is no value whatsoever, I can't believe you guys even put this garbage in front of me, then we need to take that, right?
Yeah,
that's Matthew Jarvis, that's Micah Schlansky, Jamie Schlansky, Floyd Schlansky. We're taking that on the chin. We're working with the client saying, great, can you tell me how this would be more value to you? And then we're going with our team and we're making those corrections. So we have 500 households that we work with, and I think Jarvis is something like 200 or 250. Mm-hmm. So that's almost 1,000 people that you're putting this in front of before you ever once use it.
When potential members ask me, okay, but Tracy, what is back there? And it's like it almost stunts me, because all I can say is
back there.
Everything that Schlansky and Jarvis used to build their business to be where they are now is back there.
So that's the client-facing stuff. That's all the value adds, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of times, Amber keeps trying to harass me into doing a webinar for the nation about email communication and communication policies, because we delegate our email to our executive assistants. And financial advisors really love that idea and are terrified, myself included. It took me a very long time to actually do this, to delegate email. And so she's like, we should do a webinar on this, because people are constantly emailing into Lifestyle at the Perfect RIA and asking, can I see Jamie's communication policy? Because that tells you how, when, and what to escalate to me and what I want to see.
And I know it's scary, because I talk to a lot of Invictus members that are like, Tracy, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, you can do this.
You can do it.
Same thing with graduating clients, right? Those things are very scary.
Yeah.
But we're there to talk you through it. And the people that end up doing it, the advisors that end up doing it, they're like, I can't believe I didn't do it sooner. I'm so grateful, so thankful that, you pushed us to do this.
Yeah. So in BackStage Pass, not only do you see the value adds, you get to see the processes, you get to use, things like I'm using my communication policy as an example, right?
Right.
You get to see our surge schedules. Surge when we surge. I surge, you surge, we surge. You get the whole country on board with the surge schedule, because it makes sense for clients. It is delivering the most amount of value for your clientele. So you get access to that, and you'll find all of these documents, right? And you're getting to learn protocols, like what works during surge and what does not work during surge. And we really want you guys to have that so you can deploy the best routes of success. I don't care if you're a solo practitioner, BackStage Pass is 100% for you. If you have an enterprise office, BackStage Pass is definitely for you. And you also get those training videos. So you have, where we hired actors and prospects and things to come in and meet with Matt and Micah. You get to see how they present things. They do training videos about how do I talk to a client about Roth conversions? Because you can have all the best ideas in the entire world, but if you can't communicate and draw that out to your client, they're never going to take action.
Jamie, do you want to know my favorite thing about the BackStage Pass?
What?
The forum, the members only forum.
Oh, yes, you do love that. These guys crack me up. But one of the things that I love about the forum, and I was kind of anti-forum till you and Matt really got on board. I know, right? Because I'm like, that's just one more social place.
You can just jump on there and ask your peers, okay, this happened to me today. I've never had it happen. Has anybody had experience? And there's so many that will jump in and be like, yes, and this is how, what I did and how I rectified it or solved it.
Yeah, so I was anti forum. Micah was kind of anti forum. We were like, Matt, Tracy, do whatever you're gonna do, right? And so now when you were telling me like the conversations that you have with members in there, and that what the level of transparency, I mean, Tracy, I have never, and I've grown up in this industry, I have never, ever, ever seen such transparency around other professionals.
Right.
And, you know, when we grew up and went to conferences, you know, my dad would always do elevator talk, and he was a big keynote speaker at a lot of industry events. And so he had this great following. And when people would get in the van or the elevator with him, not the van, that's creepy. No vans. Nobody's meeting Floyd Jelansky in the van, but in the elevator.
Let's make that clear.
Yeah, they'd get in the elevator and say, Floyd, I have a practice just like yours, and here's what I earned last year. And I'd be like, oh, that's great. I'm sure you do, you know. And Matt jokes about this too, that when advisors walk up to him and say, Matt, my practice is exactly like yours. He's like, yep, sure. Let me see your ADV. I'm sure it is, right? But when those conferences would happen, my dad, as soon as a person left the elevator, he would turn to me and said, if a person is willing to give you their numbers, the second that they meet you, you cut them in half because they're lying to themselves. And it's very true. Like even when I talk to clients and stuff, if they're willing to rattle off a number really, really quick, and that's one of the reasons we ask for so much documentation, you probably either you don't know what you don't know, right? You're not really tracking it. And what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. And then two, you are lying to yourself. How many of us out there say we are doing things we aren't actually doing if nobody's holding us accountable?
So ask me how many times I've asked somebody what fee they charge, and then ask them what their AUM is, and it doesn't calculate.
Right, and that's just quick math, right? Yeah, and nobody can do money math like Tracy. She's very quick in tabbing that up, you know? And so somebody would be like, oh yeah, this is my charge, and these are my fees, and then you say, great, can I see your tax return? And you're like, how did that happen? Are you giving half of your money away to charity? Like, where's that deduction at here?
Rounding back to the forum, though, the other thing that I like is because there are some advisors out there that don't want to be transparent. They don't want to be vulnerable and stick their question in the forum. And I say, hey, send me the question and I'll do it anonymous.
Yeah.
I'll put it in there
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
so nice. Yeah. Because that is like a lot of fear, right? And that's so much of why there's been no transparency, is because everyone hears from these quote unquote self-proclaimed experts what they should be doing. Then everyone runs around lying that they're to themselves that they're doing it, right? And guys, this is us included. Us included. I was really, really vulnerable talking to you guys out there in the TPR Nation about our referrals declining because we stopped doing the things that we had always done, and lo and behold, referrals started to decline, right? And so we had to stop and say, okay, hold on, we did something so well, it's that we just stopped doing it. And we started believing our own BS, that we were so loved that referrals would just automatically happen. Right? And that's not a reality. We have to actually apply the things to make those things happen. And so consistently all of the time. And so the Backstage Pass gives you this transparency to come forward and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'm not doing this. And the fact that Tracy will be your little anonymous person is amazing. I didn't know that. And you can ask those questions that you might not otherwise ask peers. And by God, you should be asking them.
Absolutely. I mean, fear stops a lot of us in our tracks, especially in our, professional lives.
We don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to. I mean, we had a huge TPR conference, and we were rolling through things about profitability and how you should calculate. So this is going to crack you up, but in financial services, there are 1,000 ways to calculate your profitability, and no one is ever doing the same scenario. Yes, it's incredible, So when you're like, what's your profit? They're like, well, what are you basing it on? And I'm like, your profit. Matt and Micah were up on the stage, and he rattled off and said, it needs to be 50% of your EBITDA. And we're going to, and everyone's writing down EBITDA, and I'm walking around the room and I'm seeing the EBITDA being written down like IBDA. And then finally, like 15 minutes into it, somebody raised their hand and said, I don't know what EBITDA is. And then so many people threw down their pencil on their pad of paper, was like, yeah, we don't know what EBITDA is either, right?
Isn't that funny? It took 15 minutes for somebody to finally build the courage, and then everybody else is like, yeah, okay.
I don't know that either, right?
Like, be you guys. Advisors, be the first one that asks the question. And you ask those questions because if you're thinking it, it's not just you. Like that sense of shame of like,
everyone knows something I don't know, is the reason we created the Perfect RIA. Let's become transparent. Let's share the things we do know and be vulnerable about what we don't know. Ask that question. Yes. So I love that about the BackStage Pass. You're going to have an incredible content. The one thing that we're very adamant about, so don't come crying to me later about it, is that if you sign up for the BackStage Pass, you are making a commitment. You are making a commitment to have that membership and to use that membership.
Such a good point, Jamie. That's one of the heartaches. When people sign up, they have these great intentions, but they don't calendar it, right? They don't put it on their calendar to go into the BackStage Pass, whether it's an hour a week, even an hour a month. Like, put it on your calendar and then go back there and
be intentional.
Get the resources you need to make your business better.
Pick one thing a quarter that you want to freaking master and become the absolute best at.
Surge, marketing,
processes, communication, hiring, graduating clients, meeting with prospects, whatever it is, pick your topic, and for the next 3 months, you become the expert on that topic. That is the best way to use BackStage Pass. So this was a lot of information about BackStage Pass. As you guys know, listening to the podcast for the Perfect RIA, whether you listen for Matt and Micah, What Works Wednesday, if you're listening to Worlds to Conquer on Thursdays or Follow Up Friday, we are 100% about actionable items. So here's what I want you to go and take action on right now. Tracy, give them an action item number 1.
Send me an email. Let's talk. Let's talk about your practice. Let's see where you're at now, see where you want to be, and get you into a membership that's going to make 2023 your best year ever.
Yeah, because I forgot to mention we even have the practice analyzer now too. So if you're unsure about what you should do and you're hem and hawing about the best direction, then schedule an appointment with Tracy. Get a one-on-one call. Have the practice analyzer done on your financial planning practice and figure out the direction that you need to take. There is so much information available to you right now, but just like with that gym membership, if you never actually go in and get on the treadmill, then don't cry to any of us about not losing weight. All of these resources are at your fingertips. So I think action item number 1, you have to schedule your call with Tracy. I think action item number 2 for you needs to be sit down and really drop the BS. Be transparent, be vulnerable, look at your practice and say, okay, where are the areas that I'm struggling? Is it hiring someone? Is it developing processes and protocols so I can actually leave the office? Are you guilty of playing office because you feel that you have a responsibility to always look like you're working? Figure out what you need to work on, and then let's set up goals that every 90 days you're smashing through content inside of the BackStage Pass about that topic.
Let's be honest, all of you out there have had thoughts of what you want your practice to look like and what you need to do to get there. Stop thinking about it and do it.
Amen. I draw this out. So every December, I draw it out on an 8x10 piece of paper or a giant 3M, and I put it in my office and I tape it up to my calendar, and it's the high level stuff, right? And I say, this is exactly what I want these different businesses to look like, and here's what I'm going to do this year. So as I'm planning trips, as the year is counting down, that is always visually present in my mind. Draw it out. Action item number 3, draw it out. See what you want your practice to look like. What are those big things that you can actually do this year because you have this information available to you? All right, TPR Nation, this has been an episode of Worlds to Conquer with Jamie Shalansky. I have had the incredible guest star, Tracy Ottinger, with me. Make your appointment. Talk to her about BackStage Pass. She'll talk to you about Invictus. She'll explain the differences between the two of you. Take the action that you need today. And please, please go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect